it's interesting that you said the media are the key for Kamala Harris. Were you surprised how quickly the media pivoted from basically forcing Joe Biden out of his job to adoring and worshiping Kamala Harris?
No, that didn't surprise me at all, because I've been watching the media for a number of years, and I see how they're like a flock of birds. Have you ever noticed a large flock of birds, and they all turn at the same time, and they all go, and you say, how in the world are they doing that? They almost have this cohesive communication, and they work together. I accused one of the media of that about a week ago, and they said, how can you say that about us? Then I started talking about how they use the same language within minutes of the time that something comes up. Is it just a coincidence that they use the same language and the same phrases? They had to admit that there probably was some degree of cooperative work going on there.
Do you think that there's coordination, or it's a conspiracy of shared instinct? They all have the same worldview.
Both. I think both of those things are going on. But there's no question that they have lost their original intent. The media, the press, is the only business that's protected by the Constitution. And there was a reason for that. It's because they were supposed to disseminate unbiased information to the people so that the people could determine what their will was, because the country was supposed to be run on the will of the people. Now, the Europeans thought we were crazy. They said, you can't have a nation that's run on the will of the people. You have to have a monarch. You have to have a ruling body. But we have demonstrated for a very long time that we can run on the will of the people, but that is being distorted significantly because the press has, instead of deciding to disseminate unbiased information, they have decided to put their thumb on the scale and to push a certain agenda, which when you think about it, makes little sense, because the agenda that they're pushing is more of a socialist, Marxist agenda. Well, what do socialists and Marxists do when they get in power? They control the media. It's almost the first thing that they do.
Yes.
So they're digging their own grave.
How responsible do you think media coverage is for Trump getting shot?
There's no question that they poisoned the atmosphere by saying, he's like Hitler and he's going to destroy democracy and is sort of Satan incarnate. When you have people who perhaps are not fully capable of controlling themselves, they can easily be influenced by that kind of activity. And it's just wrong. Now, I would quickly hasten that it's done on all sides in the political arena. Spending time demonizing other people because somehow they think that helps, and it does help for some people. Wouldn't it be amazing if we could actually discuss the issues?
Yes.
What are the policies that actually impact people's lives? If we could spend nearly as much time on that as we do talking about each other and denigrating each other, I think we could make some real progress. And I think we might actually find that there's more agreement than you think there is. I'd say 80% of issues your most radical left-wing and right-wing people would probably agree on. But we take that 10 to 20% and we magnify it and we make it the biggest issue to the point that people hate each other.
What do you think would happen if Kamala Harris got elected president?
I think we would continue to move in a very leftist direction. I mean, she was the most radical left-wing member of the Senate. She was even to the left of Bernie Sanders. She was a co-sponsor of the Green New Energy deal. She wants Medicaid for everybody, mandatory, no private insurance. As the DA, she was the one who basically didn't want to punish people who were guilty of horrendous crimes and repeat offenders. And she wanted open borders. And all the things that we see happening, you can put those on steroids if she becomes the president. And I hope people will go back and look at her record. Don't just listen to pleasant words that will be interspersed with ridiculous laughter, but go back and actually look at what she did and what she has said. And I think people will remember why she got no traction at all when she was running for president.
I'm really struck by that. I'm struck by how little popular support she's ever had, ever. So now, according to some polls, she's the sitting vice president, but she's the front runner in this race. How did that happen in a country that's supposed to be run by its people? That's a representative democracy.
Well, I mean, you talk about a threat to democracy when the votes of 14 million people are just tossed into the wastebasket and a bunch of backroom politicians make decisions.
You're talking about the primary votes.
Right. Then we end up with somebody who, on their own merits, would never have been in that position. That's a real problem. And there are consequences for doing things like that. The reason that our country accelerated from a bunch of ragtag militiamen to the pinnacle of the world is because we had a process and it worked well and it reflected the will of the people. When you throw that out, you can't anticipate that things will continue to go smoothly. They won't. And, we've just thrown a big kink in the whole thing. And hopefully the American people will correct it. I think our founders were very, very smart people, and they studied every single governmental system that had ever existed in the history of the world. And they were eclectics. They extracted the good things and they excluded the bad things. But one of the things that they noticed when they studied all of these governments is that all governments move in the same direction. Regardless of how they start, regardless of how lofty their ideals are, they grow, they infiltrate, and they dominate. And they wanted to give us a government that wouldn't do that, that would leave the people free and in charge. And that's why they work so hard. And as you know, it was very raucous, and there were a lot of different opinions about how to do that. And in the last convention in Philadelphia, Constitutional Convention, the whole thing was about to dissolve. Everybody go their separate ways. And elder statesman Benjamin Franklin, 81 years old, said, "Stop. Gentlemen, let's get down on our knees and let's ask God for wisdom." And they prayed and they got up and they resolved their differences and gave us the Constitution, which I believe is a God-inspired document. But if we neglect it, if we don't adhere to it, then we will suffer the consequences. And that's what the battle is right now. The battle that's going on in this election, it's not about Democrats and Republicans. It's about people who want a country that is of, for, and by the people, and people who want a government that is of, for, and by the government. That's what this is about.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. We hope you'll subscribe to it. And by the way, you can hit the little bell on there and get notifications every time we produce a video. We hope you'll do that also.